General Mark Milley confirming that some National Guard troops had bayonets at last month's Black Lives Matter protests in Washington. That revelation coming in response to questions from two congressmen who now have more questions about how the military responded. One of those lawmakers, Illinois Congressman Krishnamoorthi, who sits on the Oversight and Intelligence Committees, joins me now. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia.
And before we begin, I'd like to put up something from what the Associated Press is reporting, and we'll read that now. An unclassified military document obtained by the AP also shows that some of the soldiers were not prepared to deal with the protesters. Instead, commanders plan to give them the proper training within 96 hours of their arrival in Washington. I want to give you a chance to respond to that part, and then we can talk about these bayonets.
Yes, I think that the reason why so many people in the military, Alicia, as well as others, are so disturbed by active duty troops being deployed in these types of situations is that they're not trained to be able to control protests or riots, and that was the case here. And I think that saying that they were going to receive 96 hours of training or 4 days of training in that type of situation is very concerning, to say the least.
Can you explain your concern? You wrote a letter with your colleague regarding these bayonets. Can you explain your concern there?
Yes, ma'am. So basically the idea there was, again, they were not trained in the use of bayonets, and these people are young men and women are put into a situation that's really untenable. They are given live rounds and firearms, and they are able to defend themselves, and they should be able to. I think that the reason why this story is so newsworthy is that people think that providing them with bayonets, especially in a situation where they're not trained to do so, they're not trained to control riots, is a bridge too far.
What do you think they should have done? When you see some of the video that's come out of there, and we've heard from our colleagues, some of these were peaceful, yes, but not all of them, and some of them became very dangerous. What else would you have preferred?
Well, first of all, fortunately, active duty troops were not actually deployed in these protests, although they were contemplated. National Guard troops have the ability to control these riots and to try to tamp down the violence in different ways, and they should. Violence is completely unacceptable. Looting is unacceptable. At the same time, it's unacceptable to have a situation that escalates and we're basically arraying military or our active duty troops against the very people they're supposed to protect, Americans and American civilians.
I want to move on to another topic here because, as you know, the Gang of Eight party leaders did receive their intel this week on this Russian bounty story that's been reported widely by the New York Times. I want to play first a little bit of sound here, an interview that National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien gave to Fox and Friends this week.
The president's career CIA briefer decided not to brief him because it was unverified intelligence. We were working very hard on this matter. It may be impossible to get to the bottom of it because someone decided to leak to hurt the president rather than uphold their obligations to the American people that they undertook when they became an intelligence officer.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was actually given a classified briefing yesterday. I can't get into the exact intelligence or comment on specific pieces of information. However, I respectfully disagree with the National Security Advisor in his characterization of the intelligence. You know, Alicia, one thing that often happens with regard to the intelligence community is that they give intelligence in which they have high or moderate confidence, and then there are dissenting views as well. And usually all of that information is presented to the principals or the decision makers, in this case the president, so that he or she is able to make a fulsome determination about what to do. And so we still have a lot of questions that deserve answers, and the investigation continues.
Do you believe sanctions against Russia are necessary at this point?
Again, I want to get to the bottom of whether the allegations are true. But if they are true, we absolutely have to warn the Russians and take actions and measures to protect our troops when adversaries like Iran or Russia or anyone else threatens their well-being.
Congressman, thank you so much for your time today, and hope you have a wonderful
Thank
4th
you.
of July.